Namaste and welcome to the very first class of the Django framework. My friend, I hope you're as excited as me to learn the Django framework, because let me tell you, this is going to be an amazing skill set that you can add to your existing tech skills. And in today's competitive IT landscape, just learning Python is definitely not sufficient, my friend. Adding the knowledge of Django, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript and SQL can really help you surge your career forward. But before that, I'm sure you fell in love with Python when you started to learn it. That is the nature of the language. Everyone will fall in love with it once they start. The question that could be there at the back of your mind could be, Rohit, why should I now also learn Django? What is the ultimate goal of learning this? Is Python not sufficient? Yes, Python is sufficient if you just want to do some basic development. But if your aim is to do web development, if your aim is to do full stack web development, then, my dear friend, Django is one of the most powerful tools for you. Now, first of all, the very reason you're learning Django is so that you can help businesses have a digital presence. What do I mean by this? My friend, let me tell you, in today's world, think about it. All our lives, we have two lives almost, two lives. What do you mean by two lives, you might ask? One is the real offline life. The second type of life we are living is the online life. Don't you think that all of us have our social media handles, all of us are browsing the internet for all our needs, not just our social needs, our economic needs, our banking needs, our hospitality needs, our hospital needs. Every single need today is fulfilled through the digital medium, is fulfilled through the internet. Naturally, all these different sectors of business, if today they really have to do business, then it is common sense that they also must have a digital presence. They must have a digital presence. A mobile phone company should have a digital presence. A clothing brand should have a digital presence. A furniture shop should have a digital presence. A TV manufacturer should have digital presence. All of them must have a digital presence. And how does a business have a digital presence? Well, it begins by creating a website. And let me tell you, a person who can help enable create a website for a business or a company is who we call as a web developer, and that is his duty, which is to create websites. And of course, even Sharp Academy is a website, and that is how probably many of you found us. So web developer's job is very, very critical in today's digital age. Now, a website is a word a common man could use, but a technical person coming from a computer science background would not call it as a website. In fact, the word that they would use is a web application. Yes, you heard me right. If you want to create a web application, Python is a requirement, but it is not the full requirement, it is not the complete requirement, it's only partial requirement. To create a web application, other technologies are also required, because a web application is an application which can be looked at or can be visualized in three distinct layers, three different layers. Now, what are those three different layers? The first layer is what we technically call as the front end of a web application. The second layer is what we technically call as the back end of a web application. Of course, both this front end and back end are useless without another critical layer called as the database layer. Three layers, three distinctive approaches to coding must be there if you really want to be creating a web application. The way front end is developed is different from back end, is different from database, right? Now, what do you mean by front end, back end and database? Let me breathe some life into these three words for you. In simple English, what you see in a web application, what a user can see, is called as the front end. In other words, if you go to Flipkart, what you see, right, where all the products are there, that is only the front end, what you're able to see, what you're able to interact with. If you go to Netflix, what you see on your screen is the front end of Netflix. If you go to Amazon, what you see on your screen is the front end of Amazon. I hope you get the picture. Similarly, every web application has a unique front end. But what I am trying to tell you is, if you want to create front ends, there is some code in the background. Now that code is not written in a programming language. That code is not written in Python. There are few technologies which have been tailor-made for this purpose. And what are those technologies? Let me show you. The first one is what we call as HTML. The second one is CSS. The third one is JavaScript. And of course, a very famous framework which combines all these three guys together called as the Bootstrap framework. Of course, we will be exploring all this and more in the purview of this course. The second layer is what we call as the backend, and this is where your hardcore programming happens. This is where all your Python and Django code you will be writing. And obviously, as I said, for backend, what you require is a programming language such as Python and a powerful framework such as the Django framework. This is what composes the backend. Any confusion till this point of time? Great. Now, what about the database? You must understand this layer is also very, very important, and what this layer actually does, I will certainly explain, but the approach for this layer is different from these two. The technology required for this layer is different from these two. The language required for this layer is different from these two, and the language which we will be learning to take care of the database layer is nothing but your structured querying language, or SQL, or what is commonly referred as SQL. SQL, SQL, structured querying language, all of them are the same. Any confusion till this point of time? Wonderful. So I hope you understand why this course is designed the way it is, wherein it not only takes care of all the three layers, which is front end, back end, database, it also 100% teaches you all these different tech stack which is required for you to excel in the field of web development. So I hope till this point of time, whatever I have spoken is completely clear. But now let me show you what is the true power and potential of a web application, which makes it the need of the hour, and why a web developer is one of the hottest career paths one can select and choose in today's IT world. Now my friend, let me help you understand why this is called as a web application. Because you must understand, application in simple words means software or a collection of programs. That is what we call as an application. Now, why has this word called as web got attached in front of it? That is what I want you to understand, because a web application is a special kind of application. Now, what do I mean by this? See, please understand, traditionally, how does things work? You have your computer, you have your software. If you want your software to work in your computer, you take the software and you install it in your computer, right? That is what we have been doing. If you want to use Microsoft Word, you have to install Microsoft Word. If you want to use PowerPoint, you have to install PowerPoint. If you want to play Call of Duty, you have to install Call of Duty. If you want to play PUBG, you have to install PUBG. In other words, the application or the software must be present inside your computer. Only then you will be able to use it. But the web applications are a unique kind of applications, is a different breed of applications. They are saying that, hey, listen, don't install me in your computer, but without installing me in your computer, you will still be able to use me. Now the question is how? Let me tell you. The moment this word application comes into the picture, web application comes into the picture, a special type of computer comes into the picture called as the server computer. Now a server is a little bit different from a traditional computer because it's a much more powerful computer. its specifications or its hardware is very, very powerful in comparison to a traditional computer that you and me use for personal use. Now, in this computer is where the application is running, is where the application is installed, that is where it is executing. Now, this computer could be anywhere in the world. It could be anywhere in the world. It could be in USA, it could be in Germany, it could be in France, it could be in Italy, it could be in Africa, it could be in India, it could be anywhere in the world. But what I want you to understand is, this computer could be anywhere in the world. Now, this is the user who wants to use the application. Now, this person could be somewhere else in the world. They could be 7 continents away, they could be thousands of kilometers away, but yet this individual can use the application present in this computer. Now, you must be thinking, how is this possible? Well, if you are also curious like him, then all I would say is, you have to install one software, not the web application. You have to install a totally different software. Which is the software we should be installing, Rohit? If you ask me, you should be installing what we call as a browser software. Now, you know there are different types of browsers. You have Chrome, you have Internet Explorer, you have Firefox, you have Safari. Haven't you heard of all these different types of browsers? Any one browser you install, it does not matter, install a browser. Next, what should we do, you might ask? All you have to do is 100%, along with the browser, you must also have an internet connection. Very, very important, because the word web means what? Internet. Internet is the need of the hour. Now, what will I do, you might ask? Very simple. The beauty of a web application is, remotely, via a browser, it can be accessed. Yes, in a system, in a machine, if a browser is there, remotely using the browser, this application can be accessed. How that works is very simple. If you want to access a web application, for example, Netflix, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, Jabong, the list goes on and on and on. All you have to do is, via the internet, send a request to the server. Send a request to the server. What will happen if you ask me? The moment the server gets a request, whatever you are requesting for, the application would execute that request and send back the output to you, and what it sends back is what we technically call as a response. Request, response. Technically, the guy who's using the application is called as the client. Client, server. I'll be able to think. If I have to give you an example, maybe if this was Flipkart, you are requesting for all the mobile phones which is created by, let us assume, OnePlus. That is the request you send to the web application working in the Flipkart server. Now the web application as a response is going to show you all the different phones that OnePlus has manufactured, which will be displayed on the browser for you. If this was Netflix, then the request could be to watch a particular show, and the response could be streaming that show for you. If this was Myntra, then the request would be probably to show you all, would be for the server to show you all the different clothes of a particular brand, right? And the response is all those clothes, maybe arranged in an order of highest price to lowest price, lowest to highest, or discount first, etc. You have filters there as well, isn't it? This is how today's world works. You are using Facebook. You never install Facebook in your laptop. You are using Google. You never install Google in your laptop. You are using Gmail. Gmail was never installed. Neither is Netflix installed, nor is Amazon Prime installed, neither is Ola, nor is Uber. None of that is installed in your laptop. There are lakhs of lines of code that is present in these applications. You have certainly not installed all that there. Yet, with a simple software like a browser and an active internet connection, one can be from a remote location accessing the software just the way the software can be used if it was installed in your computer. This is the world of web applications. This is how today's software industry has changed. And you, my friend, obviously have to learn how to do this, because this is the need of the hour and this is going to be a game changer in your careers. Another beauty of web applications is this browser is the only software required for you to access the server. Now this browser is available on all types of devices. For example, you can also be accessing this browser via a a phone if in case you want, which is what I'm showing you. You can change the device and you can be using a tablet, it still perfectly works. You can change the device and you can be using a laptop and still it perfectly works. Across all devices, the same application can be accessed. Now, if you had to create a software and install it in different applications, then that would have been so complex of a task to do. But see how they have decentralized it. Execution happens somewhere. Displaying the result of execution happens here. So naturally, the burden on the client machine is also less. Maybe to execute such a software, you require 64 GB of RAM. You require the latest and greatest solid state drive hard disk. You require a very expensive GPU processing power. Now, here, if you just have one 2 GB RAM and a browser, the same application can be executed here also, because after all, what is coming here is the result of execution, not the execution itself. And that is the beauty of web applications. That is how such complex softwares, which have such great hardware expectations, can be used and executed by a common man on a simple handheld device. Don't you think this is beautiful? Naturally, we will have to leverage this, and this is what the course is going to be exploring completely. Anyways, I hope you got an idea about this. Next, I want to speak about those 3 layers in depth, and I want you to understand what each layer is actually doing and why the technologies that I spoke about matter. So my friend, now it's time for you to understand how the 3 layers of a web application work hand in hand and why they are required and what purpose each of them serve. Let us assume that I am a person who wants to sell mobile phones on a website. I want to create an e-commerce application to sell mobile phones. Now, I want you to first think in terms of the front end. The front end, as I have repeated multiple times, is what the user can see. Now, when somebody comes to my website and he looks at it, what I want them to see is this. See, this is how I want information. I want the image of the phone, then the name of the phone, and then a button called as No More, on which if the user clicks, he will be taken to another page where all the details of that mobile phone is present, right? Like this, not only one phone, other phone also. First, I should have the image, I should then have the name, I should have the button. Now, this is how I want to arrange my data on the front end. This is how I want to structure the data on the front end. This is how I want to format the data in the front end. Now, where is this data coming from? I am not speaking about that. Who is sending the data? I am not speaking about that. I am purely speaking about how the data must be arranged for the presentation or for the view of the user. As a web developer, you must be thinking, how can I learn to arrange data this way? Well, if arrangement of data, if arrangement of information is what is important to you, and please understand, by data I mean it could be images, it could be text, it could be audio, it could be video, it could be files, it could be different types of data. But if arrangement is important, you must not look for a solution towards a programming language. A programming language cannot help you. Then which kind of language can help in arrangement of data, if you ask me? Markup languages can help you. Now, which is the markup language which we would be using, if you ask me? We would be using a markup language called as the hypertext markup language, or HTML, and it is HTML5 that we would be using, right? Now, please understand, if you go to a website and you just see a picture, you see the name, you see the name and a button like this, you'd probably not like to visit that website multiple times, because today as human beings, for us, not only is data important, the presentation of data is important. The aesthetics of data is important. How beautiful and visually pleasing it is to the eye is also as important to us as the data is. Now, if you want this to be visually pleasing, then you must style this data, right? You must put makeup for this data. Now, how are we going to put makeup for this data, if you ask me? Well, it's very, very simple. For that, you must use another type of markup language. And which is that markup language, if you ask me? That I will tell you. But wouldn't you want the data to look beautiful like this? If this is your expectation, then the solution is in a markup language called as the Cascading Style Sheets, or CSS. And it is CSS 3 which we will be learning as a part of this course. Any confusion till this point of time? Not only that, sometimes you would want to make this page dynamic in nature. Maybe as the user is using, if he scrolls to half the page, you want a box to pop up with a message saying there is a discount offer, or there is a giveaway, or something like that. You want a pop up to come. Or if in case he clicks on no more, you want an alert box to come saying that, hey, for a limited time, this particular phone is going to have 50% discount. You want such dynamic responsiveness in your website. I'm sure you can relate to what I'm saying. So many websites give you this dynamic nature. Well, if that is your expectation, then you must also add one more language to this, which is not a markup language, which is also a programming language, which was primarily designed for the front end. And that is what we call as JavaScript. And of course, how can you forget the Bootstrap framework, which is a framework which is a collection of code of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now, what do you mean by a framework? See guys, I want you to understand. As a developer, you have two choices. For whatever you want to do, you can sit and try to write code from scratch. But just because the existence of the IT industry has been for such a long duration, for any kind of problem or any kind of situation that you can think of, people have already thought of it and people have written code for it. And what has happened is developers realized that every time reinventing the wheel is a foolish approach. Why not reuse the code that developers far better than you and me have written? That is what we call as a framework. A framework is a large repository of code which is used for common problems, common scenarios that one might face. For example, you want a button to come like this. There is code already in Bootstrap. One line you write, automatically that code is fetched, put it here. You want some kind of coloring, styling to happen. That code is already there in Bootstrap. Just fetch that code, paste it there, as simple as that. But to understand Bootstrap, first you must understand HTML, CSS, JavaScript. A combination of this will result in a better understanding of Bootstrap. Any confusion till this point of time? So naturally, all this we should be learning. In fact, this is the first thing that we will start our discussion, which is HTML, then we will move on to CSS, then we will move on to the basics of JavaScript. Complete JavaScript is not required. And then we will learn Bootstrap. I hope the flow is clear to each and every one of you. But what I want you to understand is, especially when we take mobiles, every day, don't you think 5 or 10 mobiles are being released in the world? Of course, today if you buy a phone in 1 month, your new phone is an outdated phone, because technology is growing at such a rapid pace and mobile manufacturers are always competing with each other to release brand new phones again and again and again. So maybe tomorrow when you come to this website, or as you're using this website, if in case you refresh, if any new phone is released in the market, don't you think that phone also should be presented here? Which is what I'm showing you. If I just refresh this, then I want another new listing of phones to come. If I refresh it again, I want other new phones to come. So don't you think what is being displayed here, this data, has to be changed and is changing? Now, where is this data coming from? First and foremost, let me establish this one fact, which is data is never stored in the front end. Front end is not capable of storing data. Front end is not capable of computing data. Front end is not capable of executing the data. Front end can only present the data. But where is this data coming from then? Well, this data is coming from a place where all the data is stored, which is what we technically refer to as a database. Now, do you understand why database is required? Obviously, all this data is here. It is from here, it is coming here, and here it is just being presented in a way that you have asked it to present. Now, if you want to work with database, there are different database technologies. I'm just listing them. MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, MongoDB. Like this, there are different types of SQL or database technologies. In our course, we will be learning MySQL. That is what we will be using. Of course, there are others as well. But I want you to understand, a database cannot directly take data and send it to the front end. In fact, if it sends data to the front end can't even understand the data, because the language that a database understands and the language which a front end understands are very different. A front end cannot request for data from the database, because a front end is only about presenting. It cannot think for itself, it cannot execute anything. That is why we need a mediator in between the database and the front end, who can understand what the user wants, go into the database, fetch that information, send it to the front end, also tell the front end how the presentation must happen. There should be a manager in between who is acting as the controller between both these layers. And who is that, if you ask me? That is the most critical part of a web application. That is the most code intensive part of a web application, which is nothing but your backend, and that is what I am just showing here, and this is where all the hardcore coding happens. Different languages can be used for backend. In fact, the Java programming language can be used, Python can be used, JavaScript can be used, C# can be used. But just a language, if you learn, you cannot code the backend. A language along with few frameworks is what will allow you to code the backend. And that is why every language which is used for backend comes with its own backend frameworks. For example, Java comes with the Spring and Hibernate. Also, nowadays, JavaScript is increasing in popularity. Express.js, Node.js are the backend frameworks of JavaScript. Of course, our favorite language which we are here to learn, Python, also has its own frameworks such as Django and Flask, and our framework of choice is going to be Django. Definitely even C# can be used, wherein .NET MVC and .NET Core, all these are the frameworks of C#. But we are going to be exploring Django. I hope I'm clear. So what happens in the front end? What happens in the back end, what happens in the database, I hope is crystal clear to each and every one of you. Now, what are we really waiting for? Let's get started, and let's start by exploring the front end. Let's start by learning HTML. Alright, my friend, now it's time for you to understand the most fundamental difference between the output of a web application program and the output of a traditional program that you have been writing so far, whether it is Java or Python or any other language. See, when you are executing your code, the output always used to come in the command prompt or on the console, right? But here, the output is always going to appear in another software present in your computer, which is your browser. This is where the output is going to come. Naturally, if this is where the output is going to come, you must understand this particular piece of software, if it has to display the output that you are sending it, it understands only one type of language. Only one type of language it understands. And what is that language, if you ask me? That is nothing but what you call as markup language. What it understands is markup languages, right? Markup languages, as I previously explained, are the languages which will help you to structure your data, present your data. There are a variety of markup languages. Of course, the very famous HTML. The other one is KML, MathML, SGML, XHTML, XML. These are all the variety of markup languages that are available to you. Of course, we will be using HTML in this particular course. I hope till this point of time I am clear. Now what I want you to understand is, let us now bring only HTML into the focus. Now what is the full form of HTML if you ask me? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. That is what it means. Now text is clear. What is hypertext? Certainly I will explain to you. But right now just understand the full form of HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. See, the moment we speak about markup languages are, if you look at the syntax of markup languages, they're composed of something called as tags. That is what it is composed of. It is composed of tags. What these tags do is, they allow you to present data the way you want it. For example, if I want web developer to come like this, you see there? Then I should put it inside a certain tag. If I want it to become bold and bigger in size like this, then I should be putting it inside a different tag. This is how data can be presented in different ways. To do that, as I was telling you, you require the help of something called as HTML tags. Now first and foremost, what does the syntax of a tag look like? Please understand, different tags have different names. Whatever is the name of the tag, it is always enclosed within these angular brackets. That is the opening, this is the closing. Inside these angular brackets, the tag name would be placed like this. This is the tag name. Any confusion till this point of time? Now, this tag, 99% of the time, a tag comes in pairs. This is the start tag. If there is a start tag, there is also an end tag, right? That is what I am just showing you like this. And the tag name remains the same. But for you to differentiate that this is a start tag and this is an end tag, they have put a slash at the beginning of the end tag. That is why this is called as an end tag. Whatever you place in between this opening tag and closing tag, starting tag and ending tag, the browser will represent that information in a unique way. In a unique way it will represent. If you put text inside a P tag, the browser is going to represent it in a certain way. If you put it inside your H1 tag, it is going to present it in a different way. Like that, there are many different tags. We will be exploring many tags. If you ask me how many tags are there, oh my friend, there are lots of tags, and if I have to just list them out for you, these are all the different HTML tags that you have. Any confusion till this point of time? Great. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if I have to just give you a certain simple idea, see, if in case I were to place some text inside a H1 tag, H1 stands for header tag. Let us assume I place web developer, I place text in between these tags. Of course, we will write code and we will execute and show you. But if you place it as an output, what I want you to understand is, like this, in your browser window, web developer will come as a header. It will come big like this. If in case I take some text and I put it inside a tag called as the P tag, short for paragraph tag, that text would appear like this, as you're able to see. So, text is the same, but the way it is represented depends upon the tag inside which it was placed. Any confusion till this point of time? Great. Next what, you might ask? Next what, if you ask me? See, all these different HTML tags which I'm speaking about, right? All these markup tags, all these tags that I spoke about, these tags will help you present the data in different ways, will help you format the data in different ways, but it is very black and white presentation. But if you go to today's websites, don't you think it's filled with colors, animations, effects? The UI UX is so beautiful, and the best websites in the world are those which look amazing, because we human beings, the majority of the information that we gather from the outside world through our sense organs, in the sense organs, the highest amount of information is gathered by our eyes. We are a very visual species. Naturally, what looks good is what always appeals to us. How we're able to think. Unfortunately, as a web developer, you do not have any styling tags here. Unfortunately, you do not have any tags which can help you style. That is why, for styling purposes, styling your HTML tags the way you want it, they created another type of markup language which is called as CSS. And what does CSS stand for? Cascading Style Sheets. And this is what we are going to be exploring from the next class onwards in depth. But I hope you understood with crystal clear clarity what is a markup language, and most importantly, what are tags and what is the general syntax of the tag. I hope to see you in the next class. Come prepared, because we are going to explore HTML in a way that was never explored before.